Okay guys, first of all, Spadia is not just a YouTube channel. We have also digital products, physical products, which are going to help you about everything we talk about in these videos. You can find two links in the descriptions below. And now let's get back to the video you came here to actually watch.
Hello everyone, welcome to another video. Today we have additional banger of one, and it's going to be about, again, work performance. And this is the three main tools which you would like to use to be able to focus a lot more on what you want to accomplish. This video is titled with work, but it can be also anything else that you actually want to focus on. And the second thing is to be able to accomplish more in a given day. And both of those will tie into actually having these tools to help you to set up a system, because these tools aren't just a tool to use it once, but these are tools to help you to establish systems to make sure that you can perform better and to make sure that you also have a better feeling and basically also excitement, in my opinion, from your work that you actually do. So I think we can actually dive into it. I will again follow the notes from my phone as in the last couple of videos we've done so far. But the first thing that we would like to focus on, and it's absolutely huge as a first tool, is to make sure that your diet has a system and you help yourself to not have to think about your food intake throughout the entire day, and to make sure that it's one structured but also in specific parts of the day. Now, what do I mean by this is that I know that a lot of times when lunch comes up, for example, or when dinner comes up, or even hour before that, we tend to think, what the hell are we going to eat during the time when we probably should be working, but we tend to think about it if we don't have any plans for that, because we want to basically have a clear structure about what we are actually going to do. And there is a way to avoid that, and I think one of the best cases for majority of the people, and this is going to be mainly for people who are working 9 to 5, is to basically use this tool in such a way that you would structure food intake into 1/3 of the day. What do I mean by this? Is that we can basically split it into three parts, and one of them obviously is sleep part. So let's say that will be on average for people 8 hours. Obviously some of you sleep less, some of us sleep more, or basically 8 hours. But then for the rest of the day, for the 16 hours, what we usually tend to do, or what is I think the standard, let's say, is basically having at least 3 courses a day. So basically having food in the morning, which is typical as a breakfast, then lunch, and also dinner. But not just because of improved focus and work. There also have been numerous studies, which we can also link, which have specifically focused on health and health outcomes, which seems to basically be the general consensus that about 6 to 10 hour window in which you would consume the entire food intake for the given day seems to be the best case scenario. And this, you could basically think about this not just in terms of focus but also health, is that 6 to 10 hours could be basically this 8-hour window, basically right in the middle. I mean, 10 hours, that would be the maximum. I would go for 6. I think it would be pretty sweet, during which you would actually try to get all of your calories in. Now, some people also manage to do that, let's say, in one sitting, or let's say in just 2 or 3 hours. I've done that myself, but I know that for many people it's very hard to not just maintain but to get into, and sometimes you would really like to not just obviously focus on just work for the entire day, but to also, for example, go on lunch with your colleagues, or with your basically family members as well, or sometimes have dinner as well with your family. So I think there's many nuances to that, but I think basically making sure that you split your day into these 3 parts, and you would probably try to have your food intake, let's say, in 2 different ways, either breakfast plus lunch, and if you really like snacks, you can also try something in between that, to basically get your entire food intake for the day. Or then the second, my best approach would be to also have food intake at lunch, and then to make sure that you eat the rest of the food you would need in the evening. On that hand, why to structure it this way is mostly related to the reason that if you know that, for example, you are not going to be eating after lunch for the entire rest of the day, you don't even have to think about food. It's absolutely crucial when you can actually dedicate your mind to one specific thing. So, and we know that our lives really aren't that not hectic to not have to think about just one thing. There are many obligations which people have, which can come up all of suddenly, and then having one of the things already ticked off for yourself, which will be food, which is quite, it's actually much easier to set up a system in it where you can just basically have dedicated timings when you eat than not, and making sure you have some kind of system, at least in this, is absolutely helpful. And if you can basically structure it based on your own preference, if you would like to eat food in the morning plus lunch, or let's say lunch plus dinner, which will be the second case, it will be absolutely helpful for you, because that would also lead you to the fact that you probably need to actually count your calories. Doesn't have to be perfect, but at least in some kind of rough measurement works absolutely much better than not knowing at all. It might help you to actually focus more on what you eat as well, because if you actually have a system in this, you are also much less likely to have impulses to all of a sudden order something when you haven't planned for. When you're all of a sudden hungry, you may just hold off, for example, until morning or until the next time you actually eat your food, because you know that you've eaten, for example, already enough for the day, if you have some kind of system in it and you know how many calories you've eaten already. So it is absolutely huge for you. And then for the work and focus, basically knowing that for the next 6 or 7 hours you really don't have to care about what you're going to eat is very huge, and it just allows you to just dedicate your entire mindset, your entire focus, and your entire mind especially to just get that work done. And you feel good about it as well. So this is just a basic loop which kind of goes into itself, that after you basically dedicate all of your attention to work, you feel pretty good after that. So it's just something you can try, guys, and just you can also let me know in the comments if you get to that. So this is basically rather a system, but it's basically a tool which helps you to establish the system, because we just talked about why it should work and how you can actually implement that as well. Now, if you have any questions about that, just you can also let me know, since I've already implemented for let's say at least a year and a half, and maybe more. So you can just also reach out back if you have any questions about that. Now there's additional thing which I will mention, which partly relates to the focus, and this is also something that I notice quite a lot, and it's about the fact that still a lot of us have notifications opened, and also secondly, a lot of us also still don't try to basically, myself included quite a lot of times, I'm not perfect at that, we don't have really a way established where we would basically have all of the notifications turned off that we, for example, have on mobiles, on laptops, for example, as well, or for example your phone, which might get a lot of calls, might get a lot of messages from your relatives at a time when you would probably like to focus on work at the same time. So this is one of the additional things which you might want to actually try to set up some kind of a system to basically figure out which kind of, for example, apps or just basically any kind of notification which might come up, which one of those is probably not that much relevant or that much life-threatening, let's say, to have it come up exactly at the moment when it gets sent to you. So I think this is like one of the largest things that is even larger distractor than food, in my opinion, because it can come up even unexpectedly on you. For example, you can get 5 notifications if you have everything open. You may be working on something and you're just getting constantly distracted by all the devices which you might have, which might be your phone, your laptop, your second laptop, for example. And I think it's even the largest killer of probably performance that I've seen, also in myself, especially at the start when I didn't have any kind of setup in terms of the system of having actually all of the notifications turned off. But also it's quite huge to just basically make sure that when you are working on some kind of project, or let's say a task, let's say, you actually make sure to finish it, and then, or when you have window, you would basically focus on whatever comes up at hand, whatever kind of message, and not try to solve the messages first, because you still need to then come back and to do the work. And this kind of shifting of focus is not really the best, because it takes time for you to get back to the task that you've done previously. One, you have to think again about what progress you've already made before when you're coming back to the task you've just left because of, for example, a notification. Secondly, you need to again get into mindset to actually get it done, to realize what needs to be done. And then the third thing, it takes time to actually start to implement that and to make it work. So this is absolutely huge, to make sure that when you're on a given task that you don't really have any thing that could actually derail your attention. Obviously, you need to set it up in a way that if there is a real emergency, or let's say a huge emergency, people can still reach you. But otherwise, I think a lot of the setups that I've had and I've seen really are just bombarded with notifications that are pretty much just derailing performance. And I think that you can easily make sure that your work and your obligations take priority over basically some notifications which you can take and deal with later. So it's absolutely huge to get this right. So just basically, it's will be dedicated to making sure that your mobile phone, your laptop, any kind of other device which you might use doesn't try to bombard you with things which you don't really care about at a given time, and maybe have time to actually take care of later down the line. So just basically make sure that this is taken care of as well, guys. It's absolutely huge, and you will not notice, let's say, as such of an immediate improvement in your performance compared to the food tool, which we just talked about. But this is something in general which just helps you to establish additional kind of system, and making sure that you refine it as you go, because this is something that I think the setup of making sure that only just some notifications are bothering you at the certain times is specific to the person and specific to what you actually want to get and what you want to actually focus on. But just know that in fact, having zero notifications, if that would be the world we could live in, and zero distractions would be the best way to actually focus on your work. So keep that in mind, and that will be basically the mindset I would actually go with when setting up a specific system for myself with this tool that I've mentioned as well. Now, the last tool which we need to talk about absolutely, which ties into both the first two which we've just gone through, is actually the fact that since you would have some kind of a system set up for basically your day, so you wouldn't have to think about food in specific parts of the day, and you would have to actually have some setup where you would probably be eating something in the morning for probably larger part of people here, or you would basically be taking care of your more personal obligations, or for example taking care of some news which you want to check in the mornings. Then a huge crucial thing which needs to be taken care of is also your wake up times. And now the reason why to implement this and why it even relates to work performance is because of mainly two things. One is that once you actually have some systems set up, they usually are best done or best taken care of in the early parts of the day. So for example, as we talked about it, you probably would want to increase your performance at work. So for example, with turn off your notifications. Well, then you probably don't really, if you go with this, you don't really have time to actually take care of your personal obligations or some of the things you usually need to take care of during the middle part of the day when you need to focus on your work. So then that basically leaves you time either in the evening, which can be done, but it's again, you might be late on something, or it would be best if you actually have taken care of something in the morning. For example, with news, it's quite a bit different if you are reading news in the morning versus in the evening, for example. And so this also ties into the wake up time, when you would like to 100% set up a system, a consistent system, which would help you to have consistency in the times you wake up, and also to waking up way earlier than the usual time when you start working. Now, I will say one thing is that I've myself set up consistently timings which were much earlier than when I started working, and I was quite adamant before about some specific timings. but I would actually believe that it's very paramount to the time when you usually start work. I would probably try to aim for 5 hours before you would actually have to work, is that when you would like to actually get up. Now what this allows you to do is two main things, which is absolutely huge guys, and it's pretty much a hidden tactic which you could use, is that one, during those 5 hours you can basically take care of your own personal obligations. And what I mean by that as well is that you can basically take care of your gym as well. So if you have the ability to do that in the morning, it will be truly the best case to do so. For example, then you could take care of your food intake, or start to have, let's say, an early breakfast as well. So that would be additional thing you can take off. You can take off, for example, your preparement, or let's say you could prepare for your work for the entire day, which is absolutely huge, because you don't even want to probably, like, for example, bill it to people if you have, for example, projects, but you can basically prepare your mindset on what you're going to deal with in the day. You can already do some work in the morning, but it basically just helps you to set your mindset right, and it also allows you to basically have what I basically would call, and I call it the first mover advantage, which basically means that if you are the first person to do something, one, it basically makes you feel that you've accomplished something. It's quite a weird thing, but additionally, it gives you, let's say, a head start in the day, and head starts are quite huge because basically being first is never bad. And in my opinion, if you can get that early start in the day, it absolutely sets you up to want to accomplish more, because basically it also is kind of a bit of an ego boost as well. To be absolutely fair, so you also need to take care of that. If you have issues with that, it gives you quite a bit higher of a self-esteem if you can also wake up quite a bit earlier to get some work done in the morning, or let's say much earlier than you would have been used to before. And then additionally, the system of basic waking up consistently like this allows you to basically repeat this each day over and over. And I would go as far as beyond to say that this doesn't just stop on Fridays, or doesn't just stop on Mondays, but the consistent wake up schedule is, in my opinion, even more important throughout the weekends, because the largest inconsistencies that we've seen for people based on studies, and also based on, let's say, more anecdotal evidence that I've seen, and also for myself in the past, is that during the weekends, especially when we have a lot less things to do, is when we tend to wake up either completely later, or let's say at different times, just because of the fact that we don't have as many obligations that will need to be done. And additionally, during the work week, we tend to have to be at a certain time at a certain place consistently throughout the week. So for example, for the 9 to 5 workers, that applies. So you can see why this consistency is really important also throughout the weekend, because that basically sets you up for the next week as well in terms of your mindset. And just one thing would be also to say is that you usually people do have slower start to the week in terms of, like, how they perform. And this can be especially impacted by the way that they've gone about throughout their weekend. If they, for example, had their sleep managed right, as we are just talking about now, if the food intake was as regular as throughout the work week, if they also try to work a bit on something, like work could be even the gym, or some studies as well for yourself, it would be absolutely huge to basically take care of all of these three things which we just talked about as these three tools, and all of them tied together, because they are basically tools which help you to establish those systems which we've talked about, and those systems help you to make sure that every day you are basically preparing yourself to accomplish the most you could, pretty much. And at the end of the day, that feels pretty good, and it allows you to absolutely go on and use these tools and improve them for yourself, because as we talked about, for example, especially for the second tool, they should be very personalized based on what you need to do and based on what you actually want to do, and helps you quite a bit at that. So guys, hopefully this video was helpful. If you have any questions about all three of those tools, you can also leave the comment down below, especially since I've used them myself very extensively to basically improve them over the past year and a half, and I would say up to even 3 years is when I would actually go up to when I've started trying to do them myself. But in terms of actually doing them, I think, well, it's been probably a year and a half, so you can try to implement them for yourself. But of course, if you have any questions, you can also reach back to all the comments. So thank you guys, and enjoy. Bye.